friends, welcome back to my channel. If you thought graphic design was just about clean grids, Helvetica, and rigid corporate systems, today we're going to shake things up. Because after modernism gave us order, rationality, and the corporate blueprint for visual identity, a bunch of graphic designers said, yeah, no, let's mess with that. And that is exactly how postmodernism stormed in, bringing rebellion, chaos, and a little bit of anarchy. By the end of this video, you'll understand how messy, expressive, and sometimes downright shocking design of the 1970s actually was, and how it reshaped visual identity today, and how very early digital tools supercharged this era of graphic design. And don't you worry, I'm going to give you super juicy designer gossip along the way. Because history isn't just about dates and movements. It's also about personalities, drama, and a little bit of scandal. Before we dive into the chaos, let's set the scene. Modernism, which we covered in the last video, was like design on autopilot. Grids, clean type, logos that looked very serious, corporate identities that were trustworthy. It was orderly, rational, and almost scientific. You could think of IBM's corporate identity. Modernism gave us Helvetica and Swiss design. Everything aligned, predictable, perfect. And that's exactly when postmodernism emerged. Designers, they started feeling a bit constrained. Sure, grids are nice and all, but what about personality? What about emotion? What about rebellion? What about having fun? Modernism taught designers how to do structure, but some felt like it was stifling creativity. Enter the 1970s. Cultural upheaval, punk music, DIY culture, and everyone had this general question authority mentality. And us designers, we're human, we caught the fever. Suddenly the rules didn't feel sacred anymore. Those rules, they felt more like suggestions. So what is postmodernism in graphic design exactly? Well, it is a movement that rejects the clean, rational rules of modernism. It is a movement that loves elasticism, irony, and expressive visuals. It is messy, but intentionally so. You could think of it like organized chaos. Some hallmarks include layering and collages, mixing historical styles, like Victorian meets Swiss, anyone? Bold decorative typography that doesn't always follow a grid. Playful references of the past. Visual irony, sometimes humorous, and sometimes a bit sarcastic. And just like any other rebellious teenager, postmodernism didn't emerge in isolation. It had personalities, some who became legends. Let's talk about Wolfgang Weingart, a Swiss designer who took Swiss typography and said, let's shake it up. He experimented with letter spacing, layering, asymmetry, in ways that were almost blasphemous to his modernist teachers. Students at the time remember his workshops as very chaotic. They were known to be both exciting and confusing. All in a good way, of course. His work paved the way for typographic experimentation. We still see it today, very prominent in posters. You could find it in editorial layouts and web typography. Then there's Paula Scher, whose typographic experimentations are bold, expressive, and full of a lot of attitude. Scher's layouts, they often appear chaotic at first. But if you really look at the details, they're actually meticulously designed. The difference? She wasn't afraid to show her personality. Through her work, you could see humor and a lot of visual tension. No conversation about postmodernism is complete unless you're talking about punk. And I'm not talking fashion only. I mean graphic design. Punk was a cultural musical movement in the late 1970s. It rejects authority and embraces DIY aesthetics, and shouted things like anarchy to the world. Designers took notice, and some became as iconic as brands themselves. Take Jamie Reed, for instance. Reed designed the Sex Pistols album covers and posters. Ripped, cut, pasted letters. The style still absolutely screams rebellion. Literally cut up magazines to make a point. His work wasn't polished, it was raw and messy, but it perfectly captured the punk ethos. Zines, self-published magazines. This became a postmodern playground. Young designers and writers could create anything they wanted, combining collage and handwritten type, photocopies, DIY graphics. There were no rules, and this helped postmodernism flourish. The key takeaway? Postmodernism design proved that visuals could have attitude. It wasn't just about selling a product anymore. It was about expressing identity, emotion, and a subculture. One of the most noticeable shifts in postmodernism is typography. Modernist grids emphasized clean. We had neutral typefaces like Helvetica. And then postmodernism said screw neutrality. We want expression. Here are 3 key features of postmodernism typography. Layering type. Letters overlapping, sometimes it's illegible at first glance. Mixing typefaces, we get serifs with sans serifs, and you can find them next to something decorative. And number 3, distortion. You get skewed, stretched, or distorted letters. It has a very dramatic effect. Okay, one fun story. Wolfgang Weingart once presented a poster to his modernist colleagues, and they all roasted it, calling it chaotic and unreadable. A lot of them said it was a responsible design. But younger designers absolutely loved it. They said things like it felt alive. The tension between old rules and new experimentation, it defined this era. Till this day, designers still reference postmodernist typography. We use it when we want to evoke things like nostalgia, irreverence, or a subculture aesthetic. Now we have to talk about the 1980s because this is when computers started sneaking its way into design studios. Before that, all design was analog. You had things like photo typesetting, paste-up boards, and layouts that were rendered by hand. Then Apple Macintosh launched in 1984, and this brought graphic design to a wider audience. Suddenly, anyone with a computer could experiment with typography. Regular people could play with layout and color. This was huge for postmodernism. Computers, they allowed for more layering. They allowed for manipulation and more rapid experimentation. Designers could push boundaries faster than ever before. Desktop publishing, it wasn't just a tool, it was revolutionary. The early digital magazines, posters, and ads were vibrant, eclectic. And of course, the word that you're going to hear me use a lot in this video, very chaotic. But that's what made postmodernism and technology a perfect match. Let's make this real with some examples. Number 1, the record sleeve explosion. Bands like Talking Heads, The Clash, Sex Pistols, they all had albums that were playful, political, and just plain weird. Design used collage and hand lettering. Irreverent visuals that matched the music's attitude. Number 2, design in magazines. Emigre, a magazine that started in the 1980s. It became a postmodern playground. They experimented with layout, type, and color in ways that defied traditional editorial design. It was chaotic, but intentionally so. And number 3, the corporate rebellion. Even big brands couldn't resist a little postmodern flavor. In the 1980s, companies started embracing more playful visuals for advertising. You could see it in packaging and logos from that time. Think of MTV's early branding. It was unpredictable, vibrant, and unapologetically youthful. So why should we care about this era? The postmodernist legacy is massive. It expanded the designer toolkit. Grids were no longer mandatory, and experimentation was celebrated. It bridged culture and design. Punk, music, subcultures. Politics, it became all valid. They were all a source of inspiration. It paved the way for digital creativity, experimentation with type, layouts, and visuals. It prepared designers for the boom in the 1990s. It showed that design could express personality, humor, and even critique society. Many trends that we see today, Instagram layouts, meme aesthetics, experimental web, these are all design descendants from postmodernism. So next time that you see a chaotic layered Instagram carousel, think postmodernism for paving the way. And by the 1990s, postmodernism began evolving again. Designers were exploring minimalism, corporate experimentation, and the rapidly expanding world of web design. The digital age was no longer a novelty. It was a permanent tool, and postmodernism, it laid the groundwork for digital experimentation. Soon, we will talk about digital design and minimalism. where postmodernism, it gave way to the clean, efficient, and functional aesthetics of the internet age. But we'll never forget that postmodernism taught designers to take risks, embrace personality, and sometimes just have fun with it. Postmodernism is a reminder that the rules of design are made to be questioned. They are meant to be twisted and reimagined. It's about breaking the grid, laughing at tradition, and saying things like, let's see what happens if we mix everything together. It's messy, bold, and unapologetically human. If you're a designer or someone who loves visuals, look at this era for inspiration. Experiment, break the rules, embrace the chaos, and maybe, just maybe, add a little bit of Wolfgang Weingart in your next project. If you enjoyed this journey into postmodernism, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because next time we're exploring the digital revolution and how minimalism transformed design. And trust me, there's some wild stories coming your way. But okay guys, that's all I have for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!